September 1st, we're a little behind. I think we have about 2 months before the snow flies, and we got to get 21 full cords at least into this woodshed. Got a lot of work ahead of us. Welcome back to GP Outdoors. Felt good getting that AXIS fired up. It's been a while, and obviously we're pretty behind this year, so we've got a lot of catching up to do. You folks will remember this is that pile of old and twisted wood that we pulled apart and separated out of the back a few weeks ago. We took the good stuff up for the mill and for some other firewood, and we just wanted to put everything that was kind of old and twisted and miserable and ugly over here. As you folks know, I'm not a big fan of cutting in the pile, but I'm going to throw the green Firewood Prosizer on my 261 today and I'll go at it. I'll just be a little bit careful because a lot of it's pretty loose and it's small. Well, good morning, folks. And I do mean early morning. I'm not sleeping well lately for some reason, but so I do a lot of my editing in the early mornings now. I wanted to break into this video because I was compelled to. You folks have shared a lot of advice and information for me over the years that's helped me out greatly. So you've probably noticed over the last few years, whenever I have a learning moment, I try to share it with you. For you folks watching, later in this video, you're going to see several segments of me using my MS-261. I'm cutting into the log pile and I'm bucking up hardwood. We're not on the West Coast. We don't do a lot of softwood. In fact, we barely ever see it. So everything we cut is hardwood. However, there's something wrong with the chainsaw. And I couldn't figure it out at first. Maybe some of you experienced loggers or experienced sawyers, if you pay attention and watch me cutting into those logs and bucking those 16-inch lengths, you're going to figure it out yourselves. But for the rest of us, I'll let you know at the end of the video what the problem was. Kind of a couple of clues. I was cutting with the saw the day before. Didn't do much cutting. So on the morning that I was cutting this log pile, I didn't pull the saw apart and clean it. All I did was sharpen the teeth. And I checked the rakers, and in fact, I think that morning I took the rakers down a bit. I know I did a pretty good job of sharpening and taking care of the rakers because I, one, could tell, because I'm getting a little bit better at it, and two, you'll see the chips on the ground afterwards. They were perfect for me. Tells me I did a good job. But either way, the saw's got a problem getting through each of these logs. Take a look. See if you can figure out what it is. So a question I get all the time from you good folks about these Firewood Prosizers made down in the US. There's a red and a green LED laser. I have the green on today. So many people ask me regularly, can you actually see it in direct sunlight? Well, it doesn't get any brighter than it is right now in this log pile, and I can see this green later as second it shows up on the wood. It pops on the side of the log. The red one, for my eyes, I can see it, but sometimes I have to look for it. But this green one, she shows up every time right away. It just makes bucking through this pile so much more efficient and faster. This Prosizer comes with a lithium battery. It's rechargeable. The red laser, I can get a full day and sometimes a day and a half out of it before I have to charge it. The green one takes much more energy, and usually I can get 3 or 4 hours out of it before I need to charge it. So I should be able to get through this pile no problem. You can pick one up from Bob and M down in the States, or if you're up in Canada, I also offer them on my website. So you've been watching for a little while. A couple extra pieces of information for you. The engine sounds fine, starts fine, seems to run fine when I pull the throttle. I know the bar oil's full, gas is full, and I'm pretty sure the oiler's working just fine because I'm not overheating and I'm not getting any smoke off the end of the bar. However, have you noticed how long it takes a sharp chainsaw to get through these 6-7 inch pieces, these 5-inch pieces? It's taking way too long. I noticed it almost immediately on that first log, but I kept cutting for a little while, trying to figure out what was wrong. Keep watching. So did you good folks figure out what it was? I imagine it could have been one of several things. All I know is I knew something was wrong with it. Let me show you what I found. So I pulled it apart. First thing I wanted to check, see if there was anything impeding the inside sprocket. Nothing. Everything's good. I checked. There's oil in there, so it's coming out. And here was what the problem was. Some of you might have guessed it. The sprocket at the end of the bar was jammed. In fact, it was jammed so hard, I had to use a hammer and a screwdriver to try to get these needles to move, or to get the sprocket to turn. I guess the power head was strong enough to spin the chain on it, whether it liked it or not. But by hand, I could not move that sprocket. Kind of tough to figure out what was wrong with it because these STIHL bars that I buy don't have a grease zerk. They're not open. It's a sealed unit in there, as you guys can see. And this has actually, in fact, happened to me about maybe 3 years ago. I threw the bar out and bought a new one because I couldn't understand what was wrong with the sprocket. I figured I bent it. But here's what I believe happened. The day before, I had done a little bit of work at that log pile, and I had a couple of bigger logs that were actually on the ground. And I buried the nose a couple of times into the dirt. Just as I was getting down to the bottom of the log, pushed it a little too far, instead of spinning it and finishing my cut. And it appears, what I eventually found out, was that there was dirt or sand or something in there jamming the sprocket. And it jammed it really tight. In fact, it took me, without exaggeration, maybe 10 to 12 minutes to free this sprocket up. I thought I was going to have to throw the bar out again. But what I did is I kept forcing it with a screwdriver, hitting it with a hammer gently to get the sprocket to start to move. And then I took the air compressor at 100 psi and I kept shooting air inside and in between each one of the legs of that sprocket, as well as inside that bar channel right behind it. And I just kept spinning it, shooting it, spinning it, shooting air. I kept moving it, and finally it started to free up, and then a bunch of debris dropped out of the bottom of the bar when I was shooting it with the air the last time, and then all of a sudden she freed right up. I think it was sand and dirt. But hey, every day is a learning experience. I hope that helps some of you new sawyers. If you do find that, it is going to be difficult to get that sprocket to start to spin freely, but just keep working it. If you have an air compressor, helped out immensely. I imagine it was just it didn't look like wood chips. It looked more like sand and dirt that had jammed up in the sprocket. Anyways, for you guys that figured out ahead of time, good on you. And for the rest of us, like I said, another learning experience. Thanks for hanging out with me. Boy, I love seeing those big chips. Means I did a pretty good job sharpening it. Thanks a lot for sticking around today. Of course, I lent Bobby my log ox, so I'm doing this by hand today. My back's gonna love me later. Have a great week with your families. Please be kind with one another, and I'll see you again right here. I'm Gord Potter, and you've been watching GP Outdoors. And hey, it's firewood season.